Yeah, and I think we just have one more panelist that'll be jumping on, but I'll start with introductions. And I'll introduce two of our three panelists as well, but want to thank folks for jumping on. My name is Jackie Wallace. I'm the Associate Director of Career Education for SUNY Oswego. I had the privilege of working with our AI committee this past spring too. Wanted to have a shout out to our university advancement team for supporting today's events as well with nominating some amazing alumni to join us to share their expertise from their experience in the world of work. So today's session is preparing students for the future of AI in the workforce. So we're here with three of our dynamic alumni to help us explore how universities can equip students to thrive in an AI-driven workforce. Our alumni are at the forefront of emerging technologies, and they'll be able to share some insights on the evolving job market, essential skills for the future, the role of higher education preparing the next generation of innovators and leaders. So we'll have a discussion today with valuable perspectives for all that join us, our faculty and staff administrators. So thank you all for jumping on today as we move forward in creating a career-ready workforce. So while we have prepared some questions that we set ahead of time to our panelists. Folks, you're welcome to even add your questions as we go along in the chat, and we'll open up at the end for questions then as well. I'm going to take a moment to introduce our panelists. So we have three folks joining us today. So when I call your name, feel free to wave and say hello, and I'll read your bio. So first on our list, I have Alex Peck. Alex is the AI Solutions Program Lead at NBCUniversal, based out of Southern California. He leads cross-functional initiatives that integrate artificial intelligence into content and media workflows, including AI-powered video generation, localization, post-production, and marketing automation. At NBCU, Alex supports global teams across film, television, marketing, and news, helping scale innovation, improve efficiency, and enhance creative capabilities. Alex graduated from SUNY Oswego in 2007 with a BA in Broadcasting and Mass Communication and a minor in Computer Information Systems. He's currently pursuing a Master's of Science in Artificial Intelligence, Management and Policy at Purdue University. His expertise spans AI strategy, enterprise adoption, and the intersection of emerging technologies and media. He's passionate about helping the next generation of professionals navigate an increasingly AI-driven workforce. So thank you, Alex, for joining us. We also have Janette Hausler, the General VP of Customer and Partner Marketing at UiPath. She joined UiPath in 2017, has held various leadership roles in helping the company public in 2021. In her current role as Global VP of Customer and Partner Marketing, she established and now leads the new customer advocacy function to spotlight the most transformative customer stories to convey the UiPath strategy in action, and engages the partner ecosystem to drive agentic automation, adoption, and scale. Prior to UiPath, Hausler was at Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, where she built the $4 billion cloud business from the ground up, launched the HPE Digital Partner Program, enabling thousands of partners globally to transition to a digital-first marketing motion. Hausler held several marketing and sales positions at American Express, where she won the Chairman's Award. She started her career in advertising, where she led integrative consumer marketing campaigns for M&M's, Starburst, and Three Musketeers. Also loves a good challenge and has completed 4 marathons, climbed Machu Picchu and Mount Kilimanjaro, and has traveled to nearly every continent. So welcome, Janette. And to bring us to our full panel, Theo Johnson is joining us today. Theo is a seasoned senior user experience researcher at Microsoft, specializing in enterprise AI, B2B platforms, and software as a service solutions. At Microsoft, he leads generative research within the Microsoft 365 Growth Plus incubation team, focuses on AI innovation and product direction, including extensive work on Microsoft Copilot experiences. His research has directly influenced the design and deployment of AI-driven tools used by global partners and enterprise customers. Theo brings over 6 years of experience across top companies like Apple, Sony Music Entertainment, and Meyer, where he has delivered user-centered insights that shape strategic product decisions. He holds a Master of Arts in Human Computer Action and a Bachelor's of Science in Cognitive Psychology from SUNY Oswego. A thought leader in UX research community, Theo regularly attends and speaks at industry conferences, including Convey UX, and others focus on AI design, and enterprise technology. He has contributed to several UX publications, sharing insights on mixed methods research, stakeholder influence, and driving business impact through user-centered research practices. So thank you all for joining us today. I'm so excited to hear from you and talk less. So we are having so many conversations this afternoon. So it's wonderful to be able to have this as one of our culminating opportunities to engage. And you'll see that there's a number of folks that have joined us this afternoon as well to learn more from you. Today's panel will also be recorded. So folks that were able to join us will be able to hear and listen in and really grow and learn from your insights too. So I'm going to start with Janette, since Janette jumped on the Zoom first to kick us off. The first question is, how has AI transformed your industry, and what impacts do you see coming in the future?
Yeah, I mean, so just a little context. I work for UiPath. It's a hyper-growth company, actually a Microsoft partner. So that was good to hear. Co-opetition, a little bit of that. But we started as an automation company at about $10 million 7 years ago in revenue, and now we're a $1.6 billion company. So major growth, went public. We started as I mentioned, automation, which is deterministic software that helps companies execute tasks, basically replace manual repetitive tasks on the desktop. What's happened actually is we are now an agentic automation company. So since that early 7 years ago, the introduction of Gen AI came into play and just changed the marketplace completely. Our customers demanded Gen AI capabilities. And then from there, right, OpenAI, right, started. And now we have LLMs, and now we have agents. So that's sort of the next generation. I'm going very fast here. So automation, AI, Gen AI, and now agents. And agents act autonomously. They help make decisions. They work with humans, and they also work with robots. Robots are considered RPA, robotic process automation, and that's the next generation. So where it's going is LLMs, large language models, agents working with robots and humans. We call that agentic automation. So one of the trends we're seeing, right, is that humans need to have the soft skills, critical thinking, as much as we're going to rely on the LLMs and the agents, right? We also need to be able to validate a lot of those decisions that the agents are making, and even check the robots to make sure they're doing the right thing. And then importantly, we need people to actually create the things, right? Create the agents and create the robots, QA, all of that, right? And then, continuously improve. Never mind selling and marketing, which is what I do. I'm in the marketing area.
Excellent. Thank you, Janette. I'm going to go over to Alex. How has AI transformed your industry, and what impacts do you see coming in the future?
Yeah, it's a great question. And hey, everybody. First of all, I love this initiative. Super excited to be here. And Jacqueline, thank you for the introductions for all of us. I think it's done a lot of good in this field. And Jeanette, it's actually really interesting to hear about how it's impacted your business and in your industry, because it's impacted, NBCUniversal and content and media in a very similar way, where we are leaning really heavily on agents. In the less exciting areas, I would say, are very agent focused, and in areas that are a little more closer to the media and content itself, it's around how can we leverage this technology to really, improve productivity? That's been the main one. And I know when AI came out, really became a public thing in the last year, two plus, for those who've been really tapped in, a lot of the initial worry was around, okay, how's this going to change the workforce? How's this going to impact the workforce? What I've seen working in AI for the last year plus has been, we actually need more people. We need a lot more people, because it's giving us the time to work on what we like to call our white glove service, or the things that we need to be really focused in on. something like Oppenheimer comes through our QC room and we want every person, every top QCer on it. We need humans in the loop. That's a really big thing to this too, is the humans in the loop. And um, just thinking about how it's changed us, it's all about productivity and ways that we can scale and be nimble and leverage, emerging technology to our advantage, because I think that's, the exciting part of AI. And I think that's why, the three of us and why we're all on this call is because this technology is so fascinating and how is it impacting and shaping the industries today. So I will pause my large ramble there and let Theo tell us something interesting.
Thank you. Theo, from you, how has AI transformed your industry? What impacts do you see coming future?
Yeah, and again, I also wanted to say, huge thank you for letting me be here to speak about AI. So I can also feel both sides of the story there as well. Copilot, I work heavily in Copilot here at Microsoft, and of course, going through the industry, working in all these different UX roles, I get a lot of mentees. I do a lot of mentoring on ADP lists and saying, hey, I'm seeing all these different AI tools. Like, how is that going to shape the future of UX research? Now, coincidentally, talking about Copilot, we just worked on this giant release where we implemented a chatbot agent to look at a ton of data. Partners can go in there, type in what they need, cycle through tons of stuff, and it pops out, and it's amazing and it's quick. Now, going through from a research practicum, I'd say that as far as transformation, faster research cycles, I'm seeing that a lot, right? Being able to kind of analyze generative research a lot faster. So bringing in users, having data sets, talking with users about different product ideas, right? And getting their early stage feedback, you can use AI to enhance that process. Now, that's where it gets kind of tricky because let's say you have a Microsoft Teams conversation, right? Oh, I'm going to use Copilot and just analyze it. Well, if you have an ask, right, that might be a little bit different. You might miss a couple things because AI might not completely track every single thing or get exactly what you're trying to get out of it. So when I'm trying to work on a Microsoft actually in growth and incubation is really trying to get the team to be like, hey, I understand that we can utilize some AI to really enhance our workflow with UX research. But again, the human element is really, really important. And of course, the topic, I've heard this too, AI as a research participant. Heard that too. There's these different agencies now. Oh, we can use these AI, people. They're just like these, not humans to analyze things. Well, I'd say that designers, researchers, we can maybe utilize a little bit of that, but I'm not for that, right? So like, there's this whole kind of thing with UX research and design right now. Is like, where do we draw the line? Where does AI fit in as a great, accelerator for UX and of course the design area as well? So I will say, utilizing AI has definitely enhanced the research process, but we're seeing more of that, adaptive user interfaces, right? And then more evaluation needing to be done, faster cycles, and of course, as Alex was just saying, right? I'd say that it does have a need. We might have more people that we need to help because we want to create more innovative things. That's going to create more development, more products we can ship out. And again, so that's just my experience. Kind of working in these different roles. And again, when I worked at Meyer, I was more consumer facing. Now I'm more in the B2B space. We're seeing a lot of these employees that are kind of working in this space. Like I work a lot with the Microsoft employees, and I'll keep this really quick and I'll be done. But they like to use I use Copilot to summarize my day. I like my planner, right? So we're seeing that as like, how do we kind of utilize that to enhance people doing their work, but also not make it to where they completely forget what they're doing and they're relying completely on AI as their trademark for doing their work. So
That's a great point. I just want to build on something Alex and Theo just said. So it's so interesting because we're in very different businesses, but yet there's a lot of related or commonalities, right, in what we're dealing with. A few things. One is you mentioned, Alex, productivity, and that's always like the first thing, efficiency, productivity around automation and AI. But what we're seeing is actually other things like employee engagement, as an example. A lot of younger people, I'll just say younger people, they come in with a lot of skills. And actually, I hope the SUNY Oswego students will have this, right? And just an expectation of like, what the hell, like, why would you ever do it that way, right? So you want to retain and attract great talent. You need to have good tools, good tooling, right? So that they're not dealing with the manual repetitive stuff and they're more productive. So there's employee engagement, but there's also customer engagement. So AI and agents are getting more strategic, particularly agents, very customer centric, customer focused, which means they're moving up the value chain, right? Not just in the back office productivity, but actually in the front office. Front office meaning dealing with customers. And importantly, revenue growth. We're also seeing that. We're seeing really smart, sharp companies, particularly in financial services and healthcare, and even technology, high tech, where these customers have a lot of expectations and capabilities, frankly. And so they want to leverage AI to actually drive the top line. So it's not just a productivity thing, it's actually a revenue growth driver.
I mean, I agree with that. I know when we were working on a lot of our projects at Microsoft, sometimes we're tailoring these agents, like these agentic agents, for those specific customers and their wants and needs, and that is driving a lot of growth and revenue because again, they're getting their jobs done faster. But we're also seeing, a higher MAU, which is like monthly active users, just because of these implementations of the AI in our systems we have for those Microsoft partners. So
Yeah, and honestly, I think it's a great, Jeanette, to your point, it's a great, interesting sort of conversation about the differences and the similarities between our industries, where a lot of what NBCU is doing right now is focused on productivity. Especially when we talk about, I know we've talked about like Copilot and other LLMs. When we get into some of the more specific like image and video models, we've been looking a lot at Adobe Firefly and OpenAI has Sora. Google just released VO3, which is scary good if you haven't taken a look at that yet. We're seeing ways for, sort of early on creative ideation, but, we have no plans to just go to one of these things and put it in your local movie theater. Like that's not, what we're doing. So it is definitely early on for us. But, we still play with agents as well for, ad sales and marketing and news even. And so there is definitely going to be more than just productivity. But I think we're a little bit early on in some of the more creative ways to leverage this from a content and media perspective. So I think the next year plus is going to be even more fascinating than the last year has been.
So I'm going to jump into the next question. And Alex, this is kind of going off, your feedback that you're seeing an increase in roles and such too. So for the three of you as well, and Alex, I'm going to start with you. Are there any roles or functions you've seen become obsolete or newly created as a result of AI integration?
Yeah, it's a great question, and a prominent one, and one that I have a lot with my friends and family when I tell them that I work in AI. They're like, "Oh, you're just taking everybody's jobs." No, pump the brakes. That's not what's happening here. Um, I've seen more, like I mentioned earlier, I've seen more roles get created. I mean, we at NBCU we spun up an entirely brand new AI organization, which I was fortunate enough to step into and have been working in for the last number of months, a year plus. Um, Nothing from a obsolete perspective. I think AI has the ability to do a lot of things rather well. I don't think it does anything perfect. And I don't think there's, from what we have seen so far, I don't see it, an entire division of our department or anything, going away. I think it actually gives time back to folks who need to be more creative or have higher priority tasks that need a little more TLC. Again, it sort of just goes back to that sort of productivity gain and you're getting time and efficiency gain. So that's where we've seen it, but I'm actually very interested to hear about Janette and Theo's journeys as well.
And
yeah, I mean,
Alex and then Janette. Or sorry, Theo and then Janette.
yeah. So I mean, this is definitely a fascinating topic because, of course, we can utilize AI to enhance our jobs, right? And I have seen a lot of roles saying, principal researcher AI. You got AI trust and safety. Prop center kind of UX researchers, right? So it's like we're seeing these kind of UX roles that people want these companies. They want these user researchers. I'll just talk about more UX research focused roles, right? Like, hey, we want to have, have you had experience, implementing AI within solutions? Tell us about that journey and how you did that. So it's like those kind of roles you're seeing a lot of companies, they want that specific skill set because they want to see your experience within that space. Now, when it comes to, of course, the role of user researcher, It's kind of like this thing called evaluative research, right? Where it's like product's been out for a while, you kind of do some testing, product's been out, you look at the metrics, look at the data, and you kind of go through and do those cycle testings. So you need to now be kind of strategic and AI fluent, and you got to be up to date with industry trends in AI and be aware of all those new and incoming tools that are kind of available for UX research. If you go to an interview, and I try to tell all my mentees and ADP list this, like, stay up to date with these tools. A lot of these tools like user testing, SurveyMonkey, I would imagine, User Zoom, like that's part of user testing. They have AI tooling now built in. And a lot of these companies now, if you have 3 to 5 years of experience or even coming out, or going to college, make sure you understand where can AI be utilized and when it cannot be utilized. So it's like drawing that line. But as far as like roles changing, I've also seen from a design perspective, those interaction designers, AI interaction designers. Hey, you have to be fluent in this environment using these different tools. And now I know as far as the design aspect, we're seeing, Figma. Figma is a great design tool to use at Microsoft. We're seeing these amazing things with AI you can do, and even Canva. I mean, Canva, another great piece of software that's great for students and great for anybody. It's like, oh my gosh, like I want to have this tool do all these things. It writes the code, does it all for you. You're like, oh my gosh, that is absolutely insane of what that can do. But again, when you come into these roles, I've seen a multitude of differences with that, but again, it's like more being up to date with those toolings and being able to kind of talk about that and how you can use that to enhance your job and grow the company more than just, kind of, a role that's changed. But again, there are roles that are AI, some AI focused roles are working on an AI team, but that just kind of brings in the depth of what I was talking about as from a UX research standpoint. So.
Thank you. And Janette, so any roles or functions you've seen obsolete or newly created as a result of the integration?
I wouldn't say obsolete. So I'll just speak from marketing purview for a second. So we are seeing, though, a very big shift. One is reduction of agencies, that particularly that copyright. There's a big push actually by our CEO, interestingly, to leverage LLMs and tools to write, to do more writing, which is interesting because marketers aren't all necessarily writers. So even if you have a tool, it's like you're not necessarily still a writer or an editor. But there is a reduction of ad agencies. I'm actually, Alex, we should talk. I'm just interested to see how that is playing out in the content world and content worlds, including yours. The white glove thing, though, definitely is playing out. But so fewer agency expenses and more tool utilization, training. Then there's a whole change management thing, right? So we have to manage through that. But the point is that we need to hire marketers that can retain marketers that have good skills and also ability to learn new tools. So you might not know ChatGPT Pro or even Copilot, but you have the the capacity and also will to do it. So I'm not seeing, that's that. I say change in, ad agencies, right? That's a big one. Too bad we didn't have someone from an ad agency, because I think that world is really changing. In terms of addition of roles, prompt engineers, obviously, that's a big one. We're seeing that. And I would also say, we're relatively small relative to these other two companies. We're 4,000 people, large 1.6 billion in revenue, but we're considered SMB in most worlds, small and medium business. And so we don't have a lot of like data scientists, but I do see that as an area of growth and opportunity for this company. You guys probably already have all that, right, at NBC and Microsoft. We don't have that. That's an area. In fact, we brought on an intern this summer to test that out, to see if that is a capability we could leverage and apply, right, to marketing.
Yeah, but actually, Janette, I love where you're going with this because the evaluation and the testing and trialing this technology has been really helpful for NBCU. And something like we've got Copilot all over the place. Theo, I'm sure we've been on an email or two. But something like ChatGPT, a number of folks are testing it across different businesses, and some folks are saying, hey, when are you opening the floodgates? When are we all getting enterprise accounts? So OpenAI doesn't train on our data and I can actually tell it the project information that I'm working on. Well, there's a cost associated to that. We need to make sure that we understand the value that it's going to bring back to the team, which has been really sort of uh, a very smart, strategic, but also can be kind of a slow way to onboard. But you'd rather be slow and safe. So that's some of the stuff we've been doing. I don't want to get too far from the initial question because I think I talked a lot about how AI has changed some roles, but I mentioned NBC Universal, sort of within our own operations and technology department, is building out this what we're calling Prism, which is our sort of AI organization, which has folks across engineering with AI use and AI specialties, product with AI specialties as well. So they're hiring like dedicated product folks with AI experience, as well as programs. So we've got a number of program managers who are tied to different business units and helping those folks get up to speed on what's the latest and greatest because not everybody has time to listen to daily AI podcasts like I do, or listen or read what's happening in the news and give them recommendations and insights based on the knowledge of their business. So we see a lot of like really tailored and specific use cases for a lot of this technology, even if something like Copilot or ChatGPT can just be sort of generalized at times.
So the next question actually speaks to somewhat, Alex, of what you've, started talking about trends and such too. So you can continue on and stuff too, and then we'll go to Theo and Janette. What emerging trends should colleges prepare students for today and in the future?
Oh, I'm throwing you softballs on these segues. It's a good question. Emerging trends. I think this is sometimes overstated, but it remains true from what I've seen. This is the worst that the technology today is the worst it's going to be. Like it continues and continues to get better. Um, I think giving students the knowledge of AI's capabilities, but also one thing we haven't touched on yet, and I think is probably going to be touched on, so I don't mean to get too ahead, is sort of like the ethics and the societal impacts of the technology. I think having a full grasp of how impressive the technology is, but also what it means to use this technology, is really important to put in the students' hands because I think, Theo, you might have mentioned it earlier, but to expand on a point, what we are trying to avoid is everybody having access to ChatGPT Enterprise, putting all of their emails into it, and now it's just ChatGPT talking to this ChatGPT, talking to that ChatGPT, and everyone's just putting their emails in. We're very much trying to avoid that. I think that's my long-winded way of saying we're trying to be very smart and secure about this, but from like an emerging trend perspective, I think we're going to see some, groundbreaking advancements in image and video creation. Again, I'm putting my NBC Universal sunglasses on and looking at it through that lens. But with that said, I think there's also room for technology that's more creative, creatively consistent and allows us to, manipulate specific characters with movements and timing. Because right now, I don't know if you guys have had the chance to play with Sora or VO or anything in your spare time. You throw in a little prompt, it's going to generate something fun. But when you have an episode of something that you're trying to get an idea for or to iterate on, and you have an actor in mind or a set or a location in mind, it's hard to get it to be perfect. So um, again, another long-winded way of me saying I think there's a lot of possibility coming down the pipe, but I always look at it from my NBCU lens. So
And
Yeah.
Theo, emerging trends that we can help prepare students for today's world of work.
Yeah, I definitely like when you brought up the ethical stuff, Alex, because you could kind of use design and kind of unintentionally scale harm when you pair it with AI, and that could cause some friction and possibly not create the business value that the company needs. So, of course, paying attention to those things, coming in from like a UX research and a design perspective, I think schools should really, start kind of looking at designing human AI kind of those interactions like chatbots, right? Talked about chatbots earlier. We're seeing a lot of those agents becoming super popular. How are those affecting businesses? What is a typical design set for that? Like, what are those kind of human computer interaction, things that are happening as far as like a cognitive model standpoint from all these different people that come in and use these systems. So the turn taking, the error recovery, right? And like looking at, personality in those AI systems, right? So how does that kind of spit back the data to you? That sometimes, is really, really important to look at. Conversational UX and those voice interfaces, right? So we're looking at that from like a accessibility standpoint. One thing I was going to mention earlier. So accessibility is really, really big. So how can we use, AI to enhance people with disabilities, scaling, and that's a very, very important, at Microsoft when we're shipping anything, right? We always put it through accessibility, make sure it's meeting standards. How can we make sure that, students coming out from these schools can understand that that is one major factor, right? Is how can we use AI and to teach them some of those ways to really kickstart that growth before they kind of go out in the world of work and UX. And then, of course, that multi-model kind of design thinking, right? So it's like looking at AI text generation. Alex, you brought up Firefly. Like recently I've kind of fiddled with that. I did a competitive analysis, when I was working at my job, looking at all these different AI tools, what they can spit out, what they can do. It's like, how do you kind of understand, right, all those different things and what they can offer, and how do you know when using AI is not the right way, and when using AI is cool, right? When is it good? When is it not? That's really important. So there's a lot of different ways that I feel like, from the UX perspective that, schools can definitely implement some of these things in some of their curriculums to really, accelerate that for going into the field. So.
Thank you, Theo. And Janette, emerging trends that we should help prepare students for in the world of work?
I mean, I talked a little bit about agents, right? That's really the big trend in LLMs right now. You know what I would say though, you asked about skills too in this. I would say, building on what Alex and Theo mentioned, I would say an emerging trend is just that communication skills are like, it's like orange is the new black, right? It's sort of like comm skills. So it's like a traditional skill, but it's even more important than ever for a number of reasons. One is back to that human in the loop. You still need humans to deal with the technology, to synthesize what the technology is telling you in terms of a decision or recommended decision. That's critical thinking / comms, communications. In addition, you need people to actually articulate what the technology is, right? Both internally, right? Because you have to explain it to people. What's the WIFM? What's in it for me? Why should I bother even using these tools? And also direct them to why, the reasons why they should use it, toward the goals. And then importantly, externally, right, to your investors, if you're a public company or even funded company, to your customers, prospects, partners, et cetera. That's a very critical skill, is that the communication. And that's a trend we're seeing, both human in the loop with the technology, but also communicating the technology. And then, by the way, at the end of the day, like, this is really interesting. I'm selling agentic automation, right, to my customers. One of the biggest things they ask for is like, well, can you help me sell this to my board? That's communication, right? So that's what enterprise and you ask like, well, what is, how do we help the next generation, right, or of students? We'll help them communicate.
Mm-hmm. So those are some great skills I'm hearing: communication skills, critical thinking skills. Theo and Alex, any other skills, either technical or non-technical, do you feel like are going to be most helpful for our students and soon-to-be graduates to be able to demonstrate and able to adapt to this AI-driven workplace?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can go first if talk a little bit
Mhm.
about that. So looking at AI and machine learning models at like a basic level, that's really, really important to kind of understand. Even me, I have 6 years of experience. I mean, I'm trying to still learn and constantly learn new things. That's really, really important, is understanding the different models and the different environments, and as far as UX research and how we can use AI, and how embedments happen, right? As far as the different tooling and like what we're trying to build, it's really, really important that we, you kind of learn that and understand that. So there's different areas of research, right? There's like the quantitative research. I hear this all the time: quantitative, qualitative, and you got your mixed methods approach, right? So there's like mixed methods is kind of a mix of both, which is what I do at Microsoft. So It's really important to kind of understand, okay, a little bit of coding is really, really important, using SQL, a little bit of Python, maybe just to kind of like do some data mining, just to kind of enhance those quantitative skill sets for the mixed methods area. And in UX research, I tell this to everybody that I talk with is the storytelling, right? I do a lot of stakeholder presentations, speaking to a lot of, VP level, right? So being able to tell a story, and you can use a little bit of AI maybe with that, and have it help you a little bit. But again, you got to be able to put that together. You got to have that skill set to tell that story. And that kind of goes along with what Janette was saying, right? That communication, that kind of being able to market that, because you can't have AI kind of spit all that out itself. So you got to be able to kind of do both of that. And the stakeholder influence is really important. So sometimes, it's like giving them some confidence, right? That what you're trying to achieve and push is going to be valuable for the company. That's a huge skill set, I believe. You get more in the senior level roles, the principal level roles of research. You got to be able to kind of talk about product, talk about the impact, what it's going to bring, and talk about the value growth over time that product is going to bring, or what you're trying to achieve with user research. And then again, looking at curiosity and skepticism. So it's like knowing when AI, insight is kind of good and when it's not good. Being able to deliver that to teams is kind of a teaching mechanism. A lot of times I get kind of, hey, Theo, we have this X, Y, and Z. What do you think about doing this with AI, to kind of accelerate this? I said, sure, we can do this, but let's do this. So being kind of an evangelist and being kind of, with research, we kind of be able to kind of really drive things the right way and making sure that everyone's kind of able to work together cohesively to, ship good products. And of course, use AI effectively. But from the UX research perspective, there's tons of different tools, like I mentioned earlier, Maze, user testing. They all have AI things with like sentiment analysis, right? But again, human element is very important. That's one thing I always tell everybody. Please be sure to not just use AI to do everything, but to kind of use it all, and then use yourself and your skills you have, as hard soft skills you have on the job. So.
Yeah, honestly, I think you guys both nailed it. Communication, right? I don't want to reiterate it for a third time, but it's so important on how, to be able to communicate what this technology is and what it's capable of doing in order to get that stakeholder buy-in, Theo, like you mentioned. So I'm also going to mention being open-minded, I think is really important. I think it's smart to stay close to what is happening in this industry, to stay close to what's coming out in the news, but to also not be nervous or afraid by it, but instead interested and excited about it. I mean, it's one thing to say that as myself, who's like super passionate about this space, and I see everything and I want to read it. And obviously not everybody's like that, but I think being open-minded to the possibilities of change, right? And the possibilities of, I've done it this way for X amount of years, but what if I did it this way? Could I save time and save money and increase throughput? Is how, a business like NBCUniversal is looking at it. So, yeah, communication, but still, I think that's the number one.
All right. So, in thinking about higher education, and just in general, and Janette, I'll put this out to you first. How can higher education best prepare students in and outside the classroom for working with emerging technologies and even just a changing workforce in general?
Well, first off, just some practical things. So, for example, in this moment, ChatGPT is like the thing, right? And ChatGPT Pro even better. I think just letting students use it. I know a lot of colleges and universities, have, anti, right, ChatGPT, but as I mentioned, we're reducing our reliance on agencies, and everyone, like all the marketers, need to know ChatGPT. That's where it's going. That's the tool of du jour, right? So, but back to Alex's point, if you have a capacity and an interest, curiosity in learning, which I'm not sure you really can teach, it's a hard one, but somehow maybe foster an environment for that curiosity. I think that would be helpful. So allowing the students to use the tools, and actually even better, apply them to their, the work they are assigned. And then, back to my communications play, I'll make that play. I'll keep making that play, which is, helping them communicate maybe complex subjects or decisions and synthesizing that in a story. Thank you, Theo, right? Great word, right? Storytelling way. And lastly, I'm just going to say is, I still think, another, like, yes, LLMs and ChatGPT and Claude, they're all, they're doing a lot of the analysis for us. At the same time, I do think critical thinking skills are really, really important. And I'll say I didn't leave Oswego with that very much. I had to really push myself to really hone those skills. Part of it was my major, communications, ironically. Uh, so I just think critical thinking, connecting dots, thinking strategically, looking at being able to identify common patterns. I think that's just fundamental to being good in business and, working with emerging technologies.
I love that you say that, Janette, too, because today there was so many faculty presenting on how they're utilizing AI, how we're developing policies and procedures and those types of things throughout the day, too. So thank you for that. And I'll go over to Alex and then Theo. Anything else you would add, too, about how we can best prepare in higher education our students in and outside of the classroom with emerging technologies such as AI?
Yeah, I like the idea of what Jeanette said of using the tool and allowing students to use it. I think that it's not just a blanket statement. I think that there are times, not saying that you made one, but not saying that I think there are times where it makes sense and times where maybe it doesn't. I think to foster that sort of collaborative environment or that sort of open-minded environment, that strategic thinking environment, let the professors uh, show how they use ChatGPT to maybe enhance a lesson plan if that was something they did. Build out, whatever, maybe PowerPoint presentation or something, just to give the students an idea of how professionals like us on this call are using the technology. One thing I'm worried about is the reliance on it is something that I see folks at our company are relying on it. And, if you've played around with it enough, you can tell when an email is written with ChatGPT or with Copilot or with any of these. And I think there needs to be well communicated, back to our communicating point, well communicated sort of guidelines to say, you can use it to help you ideate, right? And help you get to a specific point. But, if you get a paper assignment, don't put the reading into ChatGPT and don't put this into that and just say, do it. All right, submitted. Now I can, go to the sting or whatever. So that's not the idea.
Yeah, I mean, I could tag on to that just a little bit. So, I know I actually had a teacher from, believe it or not, Purdue actually messaged me about AI and like, hey, like I'm actually thinking about creating some curriculums for AI. Like, what should we do, right? So, kind of going on that point of talking about tooling, right, and using it. Like, yes, definitely have the students use it, but it's also like thinking about like where to use it and when, right? As far as like, for instance, Miro, another great design tool. I love Miro. You could do a bunch of stuff in there, design workshops, right, and journeys. Like maybe Miro, like using AI for syntheses, right? Like utilizing, hey, this is a class on different, different toolings that for UX and stuff like that, right? A curriculum with using maybe Notion. We use Notion in my previous role, which is really, really great for like kind of documenting research findings, right? So it's like kind of integrating that tool training, how to use tools in the UX workforce to improve your daily life and do better at your job. So and again, too, so looking at like AI and UXR and design courses. So again, that kind of covers both of that. Talking about those constraints, the Nielsen and Norman, right? Those 10 usability heuristics that everybody knows and loves, right? So it's how does AI apply to that factor, right? And how can we kind of build off that to make sure that we can, teach the students the best things possible moving forward. And then portfolios, right? So one thing going into, that is like people, when we graduate college, a lot of these companies say, hey, please drop a link to your UX portfolio, right? So how to kind of use that, use AI prototyping, chatbot design, right? So just again, having that kind of, area of learning and then that cross discipline. I know earlier we mentioned, right, like when to use. So how do we kind of promote that, right, across like data science, ethics, right, computer science, making sure that like, hey, these are the good things for AI, and I always bring it back. This is when maybe not to use AI. And again, right, Alex, you're right. You could definitely see when someone's like using, AI and there's like almost no emotion, right? Because it's not to that level. It's like you think of the Turing system. It's like that, it's still, I mean, it's amazing what AI can do. But again, when that starts having emotion, that's gonna be wild, right? So it's like we're starting to slowly see that, which is absolutely crazy. But again, keeping an open mind, and again, I like that thought with critical thinking and having that. That's really important, right? So it's like almost being able to kind of, kill two birds with one stone, being able to use AI, but use your critical thinking and have the best ROI from that and combining that for the best thing possible for those students.
So there's just 6 minutes left. I know we'll have an opportunity at the end just to, kind of wrap up, but wanted to open it up to see if anyone either in the room or on Zoom had a burning question that they also had or something they wanted to follow up regarding any of the insights, perspectives, and feedback that we've already heard today. So I wanted to give a moment for other folks, not just me, to ask questions.
Is there anything that you would say AI can't do just yet that we, suggest to our students not to not use this because they won't learn, but not use this because AI just isn't there yet? I mean, we all know don't do this to cheat, don't do this to do your work for you, but is there any don't do this because AI just can't do it as well as we can? Yeah.
I think that goes back to the soulless. I call it soulless marketing or soulless, don't just copy and paste, right? What ChatGPT is giving you. You have to fact check. That's really a big deal because the LLMs still hallucinate a ton. Actually, but so you can use multiple LLMs. That's kind of an interesting thing. Multiple tools. So I think don't just take it for what it is. And then I think multiple tools is actually another thing. I think just like anything, I think multi-tools actually help. I wouldn't rely solely on one. I would rely on multiple based on the goal that you have. To get the, sort of most comprehensive answer and also different angles maybe to a question you're posing. And then math. It doesn't do math very well. Not yet.
Want to bet?
Oh, is that right? Really? Yeah. Our CEO always says that. I don't trust the LLMs for, Oh, really? Is that right? Oh, okay.
If they
Interesting.
couldn't do math right, I wouldn't be here because I got a lot of students cheating on their math homework with AI right now.
Oh, really? Huh.
Yeah.
Is it correct?
Yep.
Oh.
But you know what I would say, just to sort of piggyback off of this, and it might not be answering your question directly, but I think it's an interesting thought while, this group is together. You sort of have to assume that your students are going to use it, right? It is the way that like my brain goes with this. Now, again, I am not an educator and I leave that to you guys. But I would assume that if I were to have students that they would be using it. And I think that's why I would be putting together, which you probably already have or are thinking about, just that sort of like that level of guidelines and trying to get out what are you trying to teach your students in this course and what skills are they trying to learn and how do we avoid them skipping that lesson and going right to ChatGPT for the answer where they need to learn something from this and trying to identify like where that learning is happening. And if they're doing a ton of research, maybe it's good to use ChatGPT to find the resources or using Copilot to find the resources. But when it's time to actually read it and make a recommendation for yourself, that's where whatever output comes there, maybe that's what you put into one of these, AI checkers or things like that. So, it's almost like, hey, we know you're going to use this thing. Here's a great way to use it. Don't use it for your final something. Again, not the educator here, but that's sort of like where my brain goes about like bringing this back to the student space.
Yeah, I really like what Alex said there. It's almost like maybe have some stuff in the class where you're like, hey, we're going to practice this exercise and you're going to have to do the problems in person, right? But you can use this to learn about how to get there, but you got to be able to get there like in person, right? On the go, like in the class. And that'll really kind of, get them to give them that exercise and use that brain a lot more, right? Than just kind of going in and be like, oh, what's this huge quadratic formula plus this plus that or whatever, right? Whatever you're trying to put in there. You never know like how we can kind of, utilize AI for the best practices, but also it's like just being able to naturally do that in the classroom and set up a curriculum to where, like Alex was saying and Janette was saying, it's like making sure that, okay, here's when you can use it. Here's the process. Here's a great reliability tool, but how do we get it so they can just, when they come into class, they can go up there, do the exercises, and be able to go through it. So using it as a tool, but not as a final solution. Yeah.
All right, we have 1 minute remaining, so I'm just going to open up to each of our panelists. And Theo, you're welcome to go first since you went last the first round. But any parting words about the future of AI when it comes to the world of work or how we prepare students?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, feel that there's a lot of new things coming out. It's like almost I see every day. I mean, on these social media platforms, we're using people using AI, and you gotta also be careful too of people using fake data, creating fake images or fake people and doing certain things, and even this whole thing of like people calling and it's not even them. So it's like I think going forward, just making sure that everyone's really aware of that safety purpose and ethical constraints. I think that's really important moving in the future of AI, especially with UX research, just knowing, when to use what tools, how to make sure that what you're offering is for solutions is really, really valuable and not just strictly driven off, I did this, and then you copy paste from, ChatGPT. So again, so yeah, I mean, this has been super awesome. And I think there is a lot of growth within AI. I work in growth and incubation at Microsoft. So we're always trying to grow and, do more and be better with our tools. But again, drawing that fine line and making sure that, moving forward, there's a lot of just things up front and curriculums created for AI that makes sense to where we're not completely letting people just rely on AI to do everything. So.
Yeah, I think there were a lot of similar conversations and discussions when the calculator came out. And I think it's a funny sort of exercise to think back on what they might have said and what advice they might have had and what ended up working and not working. Where now, I've got the Copilot and ChatGPT apps on my phone. I have the calculator app next to it, which is kind of funny. I think we could probably have an entire discussion about the societal and ethical impacts of this technology. And I wish we probably had more time to do this. I mean, we could go for another 3 hours, the three of us, I bet. But I think that's something too, where maybe it's a dedicated course, maybe it's a part of the learnings, maybe it's something that, just reminds students that like, yes, this technology is good, but if, used in other sectors, think healthcare, think policing, where we're just letting technology make a decision for us and not vetting it, it could literally have life or death consequences, and that's where there's no pressure with NBCU. Well, besides the people picketing 2 years ago, but we do keep it all in mind. So
Thank you, and Janette.
I'm just going to go back to, I totally agree on the ethics and, what better way, like the next generation, right, to really push that agenda. I am curious, like, are they into it? I have a daughter who's a college age and she's a journalist and she's anti AI, which is kind of funny in our household. But I am curious, are the students into it? So I'm actually asking a question versus giving a parting thought. But do you find, and it ties back to the ethics question, because I think a lot of young people question the ethics around AI.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd be
Especially
curious.
the impact on sustainability and everything too.
Yes, that's true too. Yeah, I mean, that's a huge thing, right? The data centers, right? And the power.
I have students who they were just going onto Google to look something up, and the first thing that populated their last search was ChatGPT. And so, yeah, they are into this.
Mm-hmm.
Ethics be damned.
Ethics be damned.
Yeah.
Might be
Like some of our students are super into it and use it a lot, and some of them are like, please, no thank you.
interesting. Well, yeah, so I guess I'll like, my parting thought is be intellectually curious. This is the calculator's coming, right? So you're either on the bus or you're not, and if you're not on the bus, you're going to get run over probably. You're just not going to have a job or a meaningful, purposeful job that will make you some, a living, right? So I would just push the be intellectually curious. Dive in, right? And, you use the tools and the softer skills around those tools, the critical thinking, as well as the communication.
All right, so we're just a few minutes over time, but I want to say thank you so much to each of our panelists and everyone that joined in today. Wish we had, so much more time to, do more questions and dive in deeper into, each of the areas we talked about today too. So thank you for everyone for jumping on. Thank you to CELT and the AI Symposium for providing the space to be able to have the panel today too, and to University Advancement too for the connections they make with our amazing alumni. So I wish everyone the best rest of your day. And thank you again.
Thank you so much. Thank you. This was
Thank
a
Thank you.
fun thing to do. Yeah.
Thank you
Reach
so
out on
much.
LinkedIn, anybody, if you
Yeah,
have questions.
please. Same.
Yeah,
Same.
yeah.
Bye, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.